Near mint condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome.
Absolute format is the best way to own this store. Time to empty those wallets and fill those shelves. Hey, all you minties, Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions, and join me today for your advanced look at the Daredevil by Frank Miller Omnibus Companion from Marvel Comics. So let's go ahead and get started. And welcome back, everybody. Now, before going any further, a big thank you to David Gabriel and the fine folks at Marvel for sending us an advance copy of this omnibus. This omnibus has been moved to a release date of May 14th, by the way, for people that are wondering why it wasn't out. I think it was originally solicited for April as well as Wolverine Volume 5, but it has been moved until May 14th now, so keep that in mind. This is an early look at this reprint. Now, this is the direct market cover by David Mazzucchelli. On the left-hand side is your standard edition cover by John Romita Jr. from The Man Without Fear. And, of course, everything under the dust jacket is exactly the same. But if you're wanting the direct market cover, you're going to have to go to places like your local comic book shop or places online like cheapgraphicnovels.com, waltzcomicshop.com, comicsbugle.com, bdcosmos.com, dyingbreedcollectors.com, organicpricebooks.com, instocktrades.com, talesofwonder.com, and DCBS and places like that. Now, since everything underneath the dust jacket is the same, we are going to be taking a closer look at this. I've always loved this cover, but at the spines. So here you have Daredevil by Frank Miller, David Mazzucchelli, John Romita Jr., and Bill Sienkiewicz. Daredevil in the big fonts here by Frank Miller, David Mazzucchelli, John Romita Jr., and Bill Sienkiewicz. And then Daredevil there. You have Companion up here at the very top and Marvel Omnibus down there. But down here you have Marvel Omnibus Companion. Now, of course, this is going to stand out no matter what on your shelf because all of the Marvel Omnis, besides this one and the Elektra Omnibus and the original Daredevil by Frank Miller Omnibus, have the Marvel Omnibus logo up here. But these are just super special. The back, of course, looking a little bit different. The retail price of this one is $100, while this original, this is the first printing, is $59.99. Still the same rating, T+. And as I mentioned, yeah, this is the faux leather that I love so much. There are issues with this one that I think I talked about with the original printing of the Daredevil by Frank Miller Omnibus whenever I did an overview. But we'll be looking at those here in a little bit. Let's look underneath the dust jacket to check out exactly what the dust jacket flaps have. One of comics' greatest visionaries makes a classic Marvel hero his own. And then the bio on some of the creators here on the right-hand side. So this is just praising the work of Frank Miller, of course, making a return to the character. And then underneath the dust jacket is this iconic image from the Man Without Fear miniseries, which is collected in here. Now, we are going to open this up. We will be doing a comparison in a little bit, talking about the stories collected in here, not going into too much spoilers, because I've already talked about Born Again. We've done an old reader, new reader on The Man Without Fear. It's my favorite Daredevil story. But, yeah, we're going to pretty much focus on the artwork and talk about what kind of stories are collected in here, and check out the build of this one with all the extras. Okay, let's go ahead and crack this omnibus open. He dwells in eternal night, but the blackness is filled with sounds and scents other man cannot perceive. Though attorney Matt Murdock is blind, his other senses function with superhuman sharpness. His radar sense guides him over every obstacle. He stalks the streets by night, a red-garbed foe of evil. Of course, describing Daredevil by Frank Miller, David Mazzucchelli, John Romita Jr., and Bill Sienkiewicz. And all of the credits here on the left-hand side, all of the contents and where you're going to find each of these particular issues, including the cover here to Born Again. Frank Miller making a return as mainly the writer for this. As a matter of fact, I don't think he has any art besides covers in the Spectacular Spider-Man issues. But he is mainly writing everything in here with the exception of the Bill Mantlow's Spectacular Spider-Man issues. But you do have people in here like Big John Buscema drawing some of the stuff in here. Al Williamson becoming one of the big inkers throughout this. I love his inks, especially through The Man Without Fear. I think his inks are just awesome. But yes, over here you have the writers and the artists, the inkers, and of course, giving credit to Bill Sienkiewicz as an artist because back then he was doing experimental things, and Marvel really didn't know exactly how to pay him. He's done interviews in the past about doing paintings, but they didn't have like a payment for people that did paintings. It was either colors or inks. But it's really interesting. And here's a wonderful introduction from Ralph Macchio, who is the editor at the time when Frank Miller came back. But let's talk about what's collected in here. So collected in here, Spectacular Spider-Man 27 through 28, and Daredevil 219, as well as 226 to 233, Daredevil the Man Without Fear 1 through 5, it's a 5-issue miniseries, and then the Marvel graphic novel Daredevil Love and War. The book retails, again, for $100, and it has 608 pages. So we do have a couple of issues that were not collected in the first Omnibus, but they do take place before he took over the run. This is when he was just an artist, and Bill Mantlo was the writer. So we have a team up with Spider-Man for 2 issues, featuring the Masked Marauder and a little bit of Carry On in the first issue, and then by the time we get to the second issue that he draws along with Frank Springer, we do get more of Carry On. And then we get him coming back to Daredevil as a writer. And this is, of course, the cover by him. This is a really, really powerful story. It's not collected in the Born Again trade paperbacks, nor in the gallery edition, but I think I remember reading it before in a collection. So it might have been in like an early Born Again collection. But Big John Buscema draws this, and it's just the story of Matt Murdock. Not Daredevil, it's just Matt Murdock walking into the Badlands of New Jersey, and then meeting this really awkward family. This is Beaver, one of the kids. You have Myrtle, the mom. And just the dark secrets that this family keeps away from the town, and the twists and turns. And Daredevil almost kind of like an onlooker into what's happening in this small town. And is it corrupt? Are these people truly evil? Who is the bad person in here? I really like this story. And Big John Buscema's art just delivering. The older I get, the more I appreciate his art more. He's become one of my top favorite artists. Just an amazing artist. And then, of course, we get to Born Again, but not before we get a little bit of the Dennis O'Neil, because Dennis O'Neil was leaving the book, and Ralph Macchio talked about how he didn't have anybody writing the book after Dennis O'Neil was leaving, so he asked Frank Miller, and Frank Miller's like, yeah, sure, can I bring David Mazzucchelli with me? And, well, you know where that ends. So this kind of sets up a little bit of what happens in Born Again, but it is the story that focuses on Gladiator, how he was good again, and then he becomes a little bit evil, and Matt's confused as to why that's happening. So there's this whole fight between him. Is he being manipulated? What exactly is going on? Some trade paperbacks do collect that. The gallery edition collects issue 226 after the Born Again story, so you're not interrupted. I get it. And then we get Born Again. And Born Again, have I done a video on this? I know I've done a Born Again old reader, new reader. We've done the Born Again gallery edition. Oh, I think I did do an overview of these. It was like a retro view when they were out of print. Because this has been reprinted once before. This was reprinted in 2016. And my viewers wanted me to do a video even though it was out of print. And then you all got the Frank Miller Omnibus reprinted last year. And this one reprinted this year. So good on you all for voting. Way to go. I was like, I think I may have said this before. Anyway, it's been a few years and I don't go back and watch my old videos, so who knows what past Omar said. Without going into huge spoilers, this is the story of Matt Murdock getting just destroyed by the Kingpin. The Kingpin finds out through some means that Matt Murdock is Daredevil, and he is going to destroy him physically and mentally, like every which way possible. Before Matt Murdock even sits down and has a cup of coffee, his bank account is drained. He's lost his attorney license. He's a little confused as to how this keeps happening. His apartment gets blown up. Everybody is turning against him. The person that he trusted the most And Ralph Macchio in the introduction. By the way, if you've never read Born Again, skip the introduction because it spoils a little bit of the twists and turns as to what happens in Born Again. And he didn't agree with that. He kind of fought the betrayal that happens in Born Again. I don't think I remember that. I've read that introduction before, but it was a nice reminder. Yeah, that he fought it, and of course, he gave in because it made sense for the story to keep going. His best friend turns on him. Everybody's turned on him. Like, he doesn't have a place to live. His apartment's blown up, and the kingpin is behind this. He is at the bottom of the barrel. And where do you go when you're at the bottom of the barrel? Well, you got two options, right? And Matt, just like the guy that he is, decides to go up. Oh man, what a powerful story. To a lot of people, regarded as the very, very best and absolute. Nothing gets better than this Daredevil story. I love it. I think it's phenomenal. We've done a thorough review of this on Old Reader, New Reader. It's a phenomenal story that introduces a couple of more elements, even though we saw in the volume that Frank Miller did, the original volume, that he retconned some things with Matt's past, but it added a lot more to the character. Well, he does the very same thing here by adding one new character to the mythos of Matt Murdock, and I thought that was a really powerful and interesting character to add, and surprise, nobody had talked about the character in the past. Just goes to show you that there's just so much out there. Now, there were some years, of course, before the end of his run and this, the Dennis O'Neil era. And that has not been collected in omnibus format. Nuke making his appearance here, Captain America making a guest star. But yes, it's a phenomenal story. And if you want to know more about it, I did do a thorough overview of it too, if you want to check out the artwork of the Gallery Edition. Speaking of Gallery Edition, I've also talked about this story in my Gallery Edition overview. And I ended up giving away the 2 copies that Marvel sent me because I thought I had an extra copy, but one of our giveaways, I gave it away. And then in the other giveaway, I gave another one away. And I was like, wait a minute. I think I gave away the copy I was supposed to keep. Oh well, now it's out of print. Anyway, this is a very experimental story by not just Frank Miller, but of course Bill Sienkiewicz. Same year that he came back to write the Born Again story, 1986, he was doing this. 1986, man, like Watchmen and Dark Knight. This one is trippy. And it is the basic story of how Kingpin is going to kidnap this French doctor's wife because he wants the French doctor to help him cure Vanessa, because it's all about Vanessa. These are the kind of art styles you're going to be seeing through here, Bill Sienkiewicz's art. Even though it's a pretty generic story, it is complicated because of the psychedelic artwork that happens through here. For example, the goon, one of Kingpin's goons, what's his name? Victor. He's drawn like a baboon. Like, he is a creepy looking character. I kind of dig it though. But for some reason, Bill Sienkiewicz drew him that way. So there's a lot of imagery like this. And it's definitely one of those stories that I hear people either love or they're like, oh, this is trippy, just like Elektra. I happen to enjoy it. I think it's beautifully crafted. And Daredevil does make appearances through here. It does feel like a Kingpin story. But again, it is a Frank Miller collection, so you're going to have that in there. And the story that wraps everything up, I love this other introduction from 1994 by Ralph Macchio, is Daredevil, the Man Without Fear. Originally supposed to be the movie screenplay, and then Frank Miller brought it over to Marvel as a 5-issue limited series, and Ralph Macchio's like, sure, let me see the pitch, and he loved the pitch. And again, taking those elements that he himself retconned, like the introduction of Stick and the introduction of Elektra, and showcasing them in a chronological order here. It is my favorite Daredevil story. Again, I absolutely love the drawings in here. And that is, of course, not just by John Romita Jr., it's awesome, but Al Williamson doing the inks. So it is the origin of Matt Murdock and how he became Daredevil. It's kind of like, I don't want to say Batman Year One, because this goes through many different ages of Matt. When he loses his father, when he loses his eyesight, and when he starts training under Stick. Oh, just phenomenal freaking story. I keep using that word, but when you're describing somebody like Frank Miller's Daredevil, hell yes, you're going to use that word. Christy Sheely does the coloring through here, which also is amazing. Joe Rosen, probably one of my favorite letterers of all time. And this is how you're going to see it connected to stories from Daredevil that you might have read in the past, like either flashbacks. But this does it in a chronological order. You'll see Matt get just better and better, make mistakes. Frank Miller. Make mistakes and become the character that he is eventually, in like even retconning the Kingpin into this story. God, do I love the way that John Romita Jr. draws Elektra. So mysterious, so sexy too. I don't know, John Romita Jr. is one of these artists that during this time he was also doing things like X-Men. He had a run on Spider-Man he had gone back to. And when I was reading X-Men at the time, I was more of a, Jim Lee clones or give me that Joe Mad art. So I wasn't the biggest fan of him. I preferred his art in the original Roger Stern Spider-Man, and of course the X-Men by Chris Claremont in the 180s and 190s. I didn't like the blocky artwork, but here, oh my gosh, it was just gorgeous. Elektra, so dangerous, so sexy. Yes, but my favorite portrayal of the Kingpin. I love the way that he draws the Kingpin. Absolutely menacing, like somebody that can crush you, man, just with his bare hands. Not just a fat guy, right? Like we've seen some people draw him, but just a big menacing wall that cannot be knocked down. And even though it's a little bit of a retcon, it kind of makes sense how he is connected to Matt's past. And of course, you might see him in costume. Matt, that is, not Kingpin. Now, in the back, let's look at the back here, because we do have extras. So we have the script. And the Born Again. That was the Born Again script, by the way, just some of it. The trade paperbacks, which there have been many trade paperbacks. And pencil layouts. I love looking at this stuff. It's all the extras. I know there is an artist edition of Born Again. And it's awesome because and it's one that I miss, and it's one that I wish I had picked up. I do have the Frank Miller's Daredevil artist edition. Blind Justice right here, which was the original draft for the Born Again story. Now, what's interesting is the Love and War. That story was supposed to be 2 issues with Bill Sienkiewicz, but the editor at the time was like, this is too good to be 2 issues. We're going to make this into a graphic novel. So there's a lot of scripts, so if anybody's ever interested in drawing comics, you can definitely check out how Miller writes a script. Articles from Marvel H number 127. Including the cover there. I want to say that's the last page of the Frank Miller companion. So it might be pages that are out of order compared to the original printing. Supplementary material here, how it all got started with a conversation between Frank Miller and John Romita Jr. Unused pages from The Man Without Fear number 4. Still nice that they're in this collection. More of the trade paperback covers, and I don't think this is from the Daredevil The Man Without Fear premiere hardcover. Yeah, this was not included in my first printing. So let's do a quick comparison. But, oh no, I'm sorry. Before I do a quick comparison, let's look at the binding. So we do have 608 pages. It is sewn binding, and there's that eye. We've seen bigger, but we've also seen smaller, especially from the iMac printer. And speaking of the iMac printer, is using the same paper stock that they've been using here for the last couple of months. So it's a little bit thicker than it used to be. Very minimal bleed through happening now, as opposed to the way that it was before. For example, if you go back and look at the video with the JMS Spider-Man volume 1 reprint, I think, where I did a comparison. Now, of course, the original printing is going to have the thicker paper, which also was a problem, though, for those that have it. Let's see if there's any. Here we go. Here's a good page to show you any amount of gutter loss, which there is some. I mean, it's very minimal, but it's there. So let's actually compare it to the original printing. Okay, we have the original printing over here and the new printing over there. We've already talked about the thickness being different, but let's look at the way the colors, that's being a lot more crimson than this one here. The same quote right there, Daredevil by Frank Miller. And on the left, printed in the US. And you can definitely tell the thickness of the paper stock. It is glossy paper stock. Actually, let's go back over here. Same page, 455 for Man Without Fear, issue number 5. So table of contents look at the same. This looks a little bit different down here than over here. Your introduction. And then right here. This is what I wanted to look at really quick, because this wanted to see the bleed through right there, which it's also here, but not as much as over here. But this isn't bad. This is just a lot thicker paper. So to kind of give you an idea, where there's whites right there, you can hardly tell, but I mean very minimal, whereas over here there's less. That's because there's whites, and lighter colors always have some kind of bleed through happening from the other side. Now, I mentioned that this has issues itself, and much like the Daredevil by Frank Miller Omnibus, the problem with this book is that the binding on it, all the excess glue that they used in this original printing, makes this a freaking mousetrap just about. Whenever you're reading the stories, like every time I've read it, and you know, I've stretched the spine, and I've read it. Oh my gosh, I've lent it out. My wife has read this. It's probably one of my most read Omnis. It's just, you have to really hold it down for it to stay down. This new printing has lighter paper, so it does stay down. The binding, of course, being a little bit different. Wanted to come to the back here to kind of show you that how the books lay over. So this is issue number 4, sorry, of the new printing, and this is the original printing over here. But to compare a little bit of the colors too, this is just a little bit lighter, which is probably truer to the way that they were released in the original comic. Whereas over here, it's like Matt just, gosh damn it, Matt just got a tan right there. But you can tell the difference in the way that the books lay over. I mean, by now they've kind of figured out how books should lay over, what kind of, you know, weight on the paper there should be. Marvel wasn't alone. DC also had what I like to call mouse traps. What was it? Hawkeye by Jeff Johns. Oh my gosh. Let's see how that spread page we looked at earlier looks in both of these editions. So this one over here, again, trying to close down. You got to hold it down a little bit. So there is some gutter loss even in the original version. There we go. Maybe. And then this one here, the way that it lays down, which I've already talked about the minimal gutter loss there. And I wanted to come back here to the back to look at the extras, because I noticed that they had an extra page or an extra image here. But what it is that they are out of order, with the exception of course, the sketches, which are in order of the issue. And over here, you get the script, same way. The Blind Justice script, looking very similar right now, until you get to the extras here for Daredevil, the Man Without Fear. Because it seems like when they start that, yeah, so it's like, yeah, now it's different. Now they're putting pages out of sequence, which is okay, right, as long as it's still the same. But it looks like it's got everything in here too. Doesn't look like they're missing anything in the new printing. It's the same thing. Just to double check here. Just the reds are a little more faded out, just a little bit. So far, so good. And then, yeah, even the same Man Without Fear supplementary material. The unused pages, which are looking the same right now. And then, yes, this right here looking the same. And then we get this image, which we've already seen this over here. So it's just this, for some reason, they put all the way in the back. And we have that image, which was already collected here. So I think this is the image that they added to the newest printing. Could have been in the 2016 printing. I don't know. I don't have that one. But that's it. I wanted to do a quick comparison. That, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing this printing of the Daredevil by Frank Miller Omnibus Companion, don't forget to check out our sponsors. BD Cosmos, the Canadian leader in graphic novels. They have a physical storefront in Montreal, Quebec, and their website, bdcosmos.com, offers 25% off your order of over $99 or more, and free shipping everywhere in Canada for every order of $200 or more.
Their shipping care is exceptional. Your books will stay cozy through the rough Canadian weather and arrive to you in near mint condition.
After checkout, let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way, and you'll be added to the monthly $25 gift card raffle. Entries are valid for new and returning customers.
Don't be afraid to call or email them. Ask them questions. Their staff is always happy to help guide you towards the right purchase. Visit their website, bdcosmos.com, for more. BD Cosmos, with rewards and raffles taking care of customers in Canada. Eh?
CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count, and build of this printing. And of course, the comparison to the original printing. In the comments down below, let me know if you are picking this up, which cover you got, if you have the original printing, if you have the second printing, if you read the stories, what you think about them, and what your favorite Daredevil story is. And more importantly, what Daredevil Omnibus should come out next. I'm always curious what people like. Of course, we did the top 60 most wanted Marvel Omnis, and you all voted for those, and number one pick, I think, is the majority of the vote. But if you have any questions, leave them down below. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications. Everyone stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.